Good morning, everyone. Welcome back here to Comic Vantage. And as you can see by the title, I am doing the top 50 books in my collection. Now, I absolutely love doing this video. It has become an annual thing. This is the fourth time I am doing it, which means I've been on YouTube a long time. I was actually looking at my stats, and coming up in March, I will be on YouTube for 5 years. March 17th is my 5-year anniversary on YouTube. Now, when I started my YouTube adventure, I had no idea where this was going to go. I didn't even know there was a comic book community. I just started doing it because I wanted to have some fun. And this is what it has evolved into. My own exclusives, my own comic book supplies, tons of videos, a great amount of friendships. I really appreciate all you guys out there. If you're new to the channel, just hit the little CV right there and get the bell. So, maybe you should hit that like button. Yeah, and if you're really so inclined, hit that little join button down there and become a channel member. Because even for you, for a few cents a day, could save I don't even know, whatever. Anyway, so like I said, this is my top 50 comic books in my collection video. I know some of you have a misconception out there that I have a billion books in my collection. I really don't. I keep 2 short boxes worth of books. And it's great to do this video because it really makes me reflect on my collecting for the year, what I want to keep, what I don't want to keep any longer. And it also really shows me how my tastes have changed throughout the year as well, which is really interesting to see. So, these are in no particular order whatsoever. I'm just going to jump out there and start doing it. As you can see, we have a lot of books to get through. Hopefully I don't go off on too many stories, even though I love telling stories about these books. And I know some of you out there also appreciate my stories about these books. Yeah, and at any time, jump in and leave a comment on a book or whatever and something that I say. I love talking to people, and the more comments I get, the more I can interact with the community, the better, because I really enjoy it. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. I want to start with my Slabbed and Gator Guard books, so I'm going to put some of these over here to the side. Although I am going to show this one right away because it's sitting right in front of everybody's face. Let's get my little stand there, my happy little stand, and that is Lovetown issue number 2. Now, this is a indie series by the Yuan twins. They're absolutely amazing guys. I love them to death. I've actually become friends with them over the years after meeting them several years back at a Comic-Con here in Las Vegas, and we've just hit it off. So this is issue number 2. I absolutely love this cover. I love it so much. I approached them a few years back and I'm like, hey, do you have the original art for the book still? And they're like, yeah, we totally do. And get this up here. And I was like, would you ever consider selling it? And they're like, well, of course. And I'm like, I really want the cover to issue number 2. And they said, well, just give me a price. I gave them a price that I thought was fair. They said, yes, definitely. We're glad this is going to a good home. They sent this to me. I have it framed. It's been hanging up ever since in my office. It's front and center of my original art collection that I have. Absolutely love it. I mean, it's just a gorgeous cover. Very Sin City-esque with some anime influences thrown in. And the whole story is like a supernatural Sin City. It is a lot of fun to read. So much so, I made it my first exclusive, but we will get back to that in a few. All right, so let's get that out of here. All right, let's get to the rest of the books now. Now, like I said, these are in no particular order. I just happen to have them completely stacked up here. All right, so next up, Catwoman, issue number 51. Another thing you're going to find in my collection, yes, you will find some hot books. You'll find some not so hot books. This is just stuff I love. And I'm happy to have it in my collection, even if it's like $1 book, and I'm sure you'll see a couple of those pop through here. But this one is, everybody knows this cover, and they know that it's worth a few dollars. As soon as I saw the book, I absolutely fell in love with it. Had to own it. This is completely a cover grab right here. I'm not a huge fan of Adam Hughes, but this one really jumped at me. Coffee, good stuff. All right. Hopefully I don't run out of room here to stack up all this stuff. I'll move my camera over a little bit. There we go. All right, next up, Magneto, issue number 0. Now again, not a book worth a whole lot of money, but when this book came out, I absolutely fell in love with the cover. I had to have it, and of course it tells the origin story of kind of Magneto. I remember being a kid and begging my dad for the money to buy this book and to take me to go get it. Oh, and these are my Gator Guard books. I love Gator Guards. If you guys aren't using them, you really should as an alternative to slabbing. But yeah, absolutely beautiful Bill Sienkiewicz cover, and I just had to own this book, and I'm so happy to have it in my collection. Next up, X-Men issue number 11. Most of the time, this book really doesn't have a whole lot of value. I think, when I first started buying this book, it was like $1, and then, well, that's for the regular cover. I'll get to that in a second. But now it's kind of shot up to like 10 and 12 bucks. I guess these Jim Lee X-Men books are really starting to take off. This one here in particular is the Pressman edition, which is worth, quite a few dollars. The silver cover lets you know that it's a Pressman edition, which is a second print, and it was only available through the Pressman board games. Now, with that being said, I don't know why I absolutely loved this cover. I completely adore it. I had a t-shirt with it back in the 90s with the image on it. I don't know why. It was just one of those things that really jumped at me. Had to have it. So I own originals of the first print and a few of the second print here of the Pressman. It was just something I've always wanted in my collection. It'll probably never, ever leave my collection. Speaking of never, ever leaving my collection, this is a book that I have received recently, and this is move that down there. This is a Shiver in the Dark, issue number 1, Thank You variant. This was a gift from the creator, Stuart Sager, directly to me. He's starting a Kickstarter where he's going to bring back his comic book, Shiver in the Dark, which is an absolutely amazing read. And he printed out a few of these Virgin covers that he gave away as gifts to retailers and longtime supporters. I happen to be lucky enough to be one of those people. I can't thank him enough for this gift. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm going to hang this up. It's never going to leave my collection. All right, another book that a few of you out there might recognize. DC Comics presents issue number 47, first appearance of He-Man. Anyone who watches my channel knows I am a huge 80s cartoon and toy buff. I mean, I've watched them all, from the mainstream to the completely obscure. And there are a lot of times when I show like an 80s comic book and everybody's like, what is that? Like Sectors and things like that. That's because in the 80s, I watched a lot of cartoons. A lot of cartoons. All right. Oh, this is a book I am so proud of. This is my very first exclusive right here. This is Lovetown number 0. Again, the Yuan twins were kind enough to let me use their new color splashed artwork they had created for their hardcover to do a special edition reprint of issue number 0. This is a Priscilla Betrothed cover. Absolutely amazing, talented artist. She's really taking off. Done lots of books now. She was regular artist for Rat Queens over at Image. Recently, she's been doing Chariot. I think it's AWA Upshot Studios, which is really taken off. It's actually gotten options for a TV show and the whole 9 yards. She was amazing to work with as well. Busted out this absolutely beautiful cover. This is the first one that came off the presses. This is this is the serial number 1 of 500 that I had printed. It hangs on my wall, and man, like I said, I'm really proud of this. Anybody who's interested in my exclusives, just to give you a little, just a little taste of what's to come. 4 more already planned for this year. Actually, 1 should be going to print very soon. Now, speaking of Priscilla, oh God, look at that. I actually commissioned her to do some artwork for me, and I sent her a Kane and the Last Padawan issue number 1, which everybody knows is actually getting really hot. And I told her, I want a Sabine Wren, have fun with it. And this is what she sent back to me. Oh man, that thing, this is an absolute work of art. It is so beautiful. You know, I mean, this is going to be in the top 5 of my favorite books in my collection. All right, now along with that one, I sent her a blank for Lady Death. Now this Lady Death blank by itself is a $100 blank. Only 400 of these printed, and maybe even less floating around, and they are very, very expensive to get hold of. And I sent her this, and I explained that to her, and she's like, oh, no pressure then. Man, look at that Lady Death. Tell me that is an absolute beauty right there. Oh, God, so good. All right, next up, getting through our slabbed and gator guarded books pretty quick here. X-Men issue number 1, and this is a Ji-Hung Lee variant cover with an X-23 remark. Oh, look at that. Absolutely beautiful. Hey, you can see my art collection hanging in the background there. A few pieces missing from the wall because I have them sitting here. Yeah, I originally bought this to put into a mystery box, and I couldn't part with it. I mean, do you guys blame me? Hey, look at that. All right, now here's another absolutely amazing book, and this is from our friend Squatchy Comics. Yes, Squatchy Comics sent this original Evil Ernie art to me as a gift, and it is just absolutely beautiful. I love it. I love Evil Ernie. I love the colors. He had a lot of fun doing this for me, and I had a lot of fun receiving it, and I can't thank him enough for that. It is absolutely beautiful. Also, from Squatchy Comics, his very first comic book, Squatchy and Foo, issue number 1. This really was a labor of love for him. He put a lot of time, a lot of effort into it, and it really, really shows. The book is just a lot of fun. He took almost every community member he has met over the years and has featured them in the book in one way or another, myself included. I love his little signature down here. So cool. This is a fun book. If you guys haven't seen this yet, you should really check it out. Get a hold of him, Squatchy Comics, either on YouTube or Instagram. And he'll look you up. Okay, now we have a few slabbed books left. This is Baby Teeth, issue number 1, and this one is actually signed by Donnie Cates over here. This book I bought this on a Frankie's sale, Frankie's Comics, I don't know, maybe it wasn't this past holiday season, it was the holiday season before. I think I paid like $30 or $40 for it. And now this book is really taken off. I mean, the book by itself sells for like $30. This is the lenticular cover. Not why I bought it, though. I bought it because I love Baby Teeth. This is one of the best stories I've ever read. It is so much fun. You can tell Donnie Cates just had fun writing it. It's a great, great story. And then we have a Hardly Thin, the Ebos Smile cover. Now, this one here makes my list by no fault of my own. I bought this book, only 20 printed, by the way, metal cover, absolutely gorgeous. I love this book. I bought it with every intention on reselling it. I'm not even sure what I paid for it. I sent it up to CGC. I was going to have it graded and get it resold because it's really exploding in price. So I get the load of books back from CGC. I open them all up. I take them to my wife and I show them to her. And she looks at this one and she's like, oh my God, we got to hang this up. I'm like, what? She's like, I love this. She's like, I absolutely love it. She was like, this is beautiful. I need to hang this up. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm keeping it then. You may notice the green tape across the front because it gets a little risque here with a see-through t-shirt. Anyway, all right. Next up, this is our last slabbed book in the collection. This is a Hellshock, issue number 1, 9.8, signed by Jay Lee. I absolutely adore Jay Lee, especially old school '90s Jay Lee when his work was just gritty and I mean, just like it was like he just slashed the pages with his ink and with razor blades and stuff, which is actually a technique that he used where he would put a big blob of black and then score it with razor blades to get the white back underneath it. This book was a gift from the Mystery Men, which is Squatchy Comics, Comic Fu, and Stevie B. They sent this to me as a thank you to them for, I mean, essentially because they say because of my mystery boxes, they all met each other and got to know each other and become friends, and they wanted to thank me for that. Absolutely thoughtful gift. This hangs up in my office, prime spot right on the wall, so everybody can see it whenever they come in. And like I said, it's a huge, huge, huge thoughtful gift. It means so much to me. This will never, ever leave my collection. All right, we are through our slabs books, so let's start on the next stack here. Here we have a Genlock, issue number 6. Now, again, this was a gift from one of my subscribers. Absolutely beautiful book. Very, very rare to find. Issue number 6 of Genlock. This book was canceled after issue number 5, and 6 was supposed to have been pulped. This book was supposed to have been destroyed. Some of them have made it out into the wild, specifically in Walmart grab bags. So that's where they've been popping up. So there are more than what people thought floating around, but it's still very, very rare. Next up, Lady Death, issue number 1. Again, absolutely adore this book. It's Lady Death in her first solo series. So you get to learn the origin, her true origin. I know her origin's kind of been retold over the years to kind of fit whatever comic book company she was with, but this is always the origin to me right here. Coffee. I'm going to put that with my other Lady Death book. We're going to keep them together. All right. Scooby Apocalypse. This is a Jim Lee cover, if I'm not mistaken. Sure is. Absolutely love this just for the story. This is one of the greatest pieces of storytelling ever. The reimagining of Scooby-Doo, where monsters are real and there's like an entire monster apocalypse going on and they're trying to save the world. Such a great, great story. Scooby is super smart. He's a like an experimentation in a lab where he's almost like a computer robot. It's pretty cool. I love the story. Spawn, issue number 9. And again, absolutely iconic right here. First appearance of Angela, who is now Thor's sister. But this is the book that started it all right here. I mean, I don't even need to say more about this. Everybody knows what this is. Ultraverse premiere, issue number 0. Huge Ultraverse fan sitting right here talking to you guys. I absolutely love the Ultraverse, love everything about them. This was the premiere issue, cover done by Jim Lee. So this is another one that's really kind of taken off because, again, Jim Lee artwork. It's sort of flying under the radar right now, but once more word gets out, this is the early Jim Lee piece, and not for Marvel. It's really, really going to blast off. I think I own like 20 copies of this. All right. Let's see what else we got. Hey. Battle Chasers, issue number 1. Another Universe variant cover. Yeah. And just absolutely beautiful. Gotta love Red Monica. And Battle Chasers is another book that's really seeing some heat because it is coming back. That's right. Joe Mad is bringing it back to the mainstream. That's definitely going to be a cover to watch out for. Next up, Gen 13, issue number 1. And this is the ongoing series, issue number 1. At the time, they made 13 different variant covers, which was completely unheard of at the time. But it really, really set off a chase for these covers. This is one of the more sought after ones. Throughout the years on my list, I always had the Janet Jackson homage cover on here, but this one this year has kind of edged it out as far as beauty goes. Absolutely love it. I like the more artistic style to it. So, and then we have Betrothed, issue number 1. Now this is the book probably none of you out there have heard of unless you have watched some of my review videos from years and years back. If you have not heard of this book, just do yourself a favor and go out and just grab the first issue. You could probably find it in a dollar bin or for $1 on eBay. It is an absolutely amazing piece of storytelling. You have two opposing factions of families. One is all about science, one is all about magic, and their children are actually betrothed to each other. It's so good to read. I absolutely love this. Night's Cry, issue number 1. Now, I don't know if this is the first year this has made it on this list or not. Now, this is an anthology series from a long defunct company called Visual Anarchy. So good. It has, like I said, it's an anthology series, but it has stories from Everett Hartsoe, who I got to sign the book. So he has a Razor story in here, which is actually illustrated by Ed McGuinness. It also has an Evil Ernie story in here from Brian Pulido. It has some Joe Monk stories in here, and it has a Hart D. Fisher story. Now, Hart D. Fisher was absolutely amazing storyteller back in the day who worked for a lot of indie and underground comics, writing his own stuff. At the time, he was called the most dangerous man in comics. This is the epitome of underground for the 90s. It was so well written, and a lot of it's still relevant to this day. Letter 44, one of my favorite stories ever written. This is a Charles Soule, I don't even know, he's just his magnum opus, I guess you can say. Wow, I mean, I don't even know what else to say about this other than wow. This has been going on for many issues now. All of them are extremely cheap to pick up. You can even get a reprint of the first issue for like $1 retail cut price. Do yourself a favor and read this book. Oh, and then come back in the comments and thank me. All right, next up, Remote Dead Air from Double Take Comics. This contains issues number 1, 2, and 3. Probably a book you have never, ever heard of. This one is a few years back from Double Take Comics. They did an entire series, actually different mini-series. Like there was the Z-Men, and I don't know, there was 4, maybe more than 4 or 5. But what it is that each of these individual self-contained storylines take place during the Night of the Living Dead. So this one here is about this woman who is trapped in a radio station while the zombies are starting to take over the town. It's so good. Actually, all of them are so good. So definitely try to dig out. Actually, let's see what we got back here. I want to give you a list so you guys aren't left wanting. So they show the map of the Outbreak at Night of the Living Dead. So we have Remote, we have Soul, Rise, Spring, Honor, Home, Z-Men, Medic, Slab, and Dedication. All these are individual miniseries that came out. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 different miniseries that all take place during Night of the Living Dead, and they're all absolutely amazing reads. Remote there happened to be my favorite, though. Okay, next up. Beautiful Canvas, issue number 1. Again, another book no one out there has heard of unless you have watched my review videos from several years back. Beautiful Canvas is beautifully written. It's actually one of the better stories I have ever read as far as comic books. So good. Condom Man. Oh yes. What top 50 collection wouldn't have Condom Man in it? This is the holiest of holy grails. In all honesty, when I started showing everybody Condom Man, it really was an absolute joke. I have had Condom Man in my collection for years just because it was a joke. When I started buying these books to put in the mystery boxes, I was picking them up on eBay for like $1.50 a piece. 5,000 copies printed. Every single one is signed and numbered by the creator. Now when you go to eBay and try to find this book, it's like a $50 and $60 book. So I really feel like I have single-handedly dark-hawked this book. There we go. Okay. Star Wars Kanan issue number 6. This is the first full appearance of the Ghost Crew. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine the other night, and I've come to the realization that I think Star Wars Rebels has edged out every other Star Wars animated series as my favorites. Even more so than Clone Wars. Don't get me wrong, love the Clone Wars series, but I really, really, really love the Rebels crew. And just last night, he sent me a text message, and he said, I actually talked him into watching the series, and he got through season 2, and he's like, I love Clone Wars. He said, but I'll be damned if I'm not invested in these characters. And I'm like, I know it. You just absolutely grow to love them. Oh, a little bit of 80s or 90s greatness right there. I mean, everybody just look at that cover, and you know why it's on this list. This is just the epitome of 90s right here, and I love 90s comics. G.I. Joe, issue number 21, and this is the silent issue. Huge fan of Snake Eyes, huge fan of 80s cartoons and comics. Love the date stamp on this thing. Had to have this book just because it's a Snake Eyes story. Now, speaking of silent issues, Pachow! Silent Night. Sin City Silent Night. This is a one-shot comic from Frank Miller and Sin City. And again, whole book is silent. I love silent comics. You can always tell the measure of a good artist and storyteller by a story written with no words. Speaking of amazing storyteller, Terry Moore right here. Our buddy who brought you Strangers in Paradise now brings you Serial. That is right, the story of a serial killer demon girl. And this is the first and second print. This year, it just checks off every tick box for a series that is going to explode. It already kind of has on the secondary market, hence the second printing. So I really recommend you guys run out and pick up this series and also just give it a read. It is so, so good. All right, next up, Creed, issue number 1. This is another book that's really seeing some heat recently. Oh man, this kid, Trent Kanuga, who was writing this and drawing this back in the 90s, he was 16 years old when he was doing this. I mean, man, he was living the dream. I think I was 19, or maybe 18 or 19 when this book came out. Oh God, I remember thinking how amazing it would have been to do this myself. Uncanny X-Men, issue number 266. First appearance of Gambit. This is the first big book I ever purchased back in the day. I think I paid 25 or 30 bucks for it back in 1994, maybe 5, I think it was. Marvels, issue number 2. And this is the Alex Ross painted series. Now, the Marvel series, each book comprised a different superhero, and it was seen through the lens of a reporter the whole time. Issue number 2 was all about mutants and the X-Men, and at the time I was a huge X-Men fan. So I grabbed this one, not knowing that it was going to completely blow up on the secondary market. But now, maybe not so much, but it's still just great to have. Oh, here we go. Rune, issue number 1, signed by Barry Windsor Smith. Now, getting a Barry Windsor Smith autograph nowadays is virtually impossible. He doesn't do cons anymore. He just stays at home and focuses on his fine art. I'm a huge Barry Windsor Smith fan, so to have this in my collection really, really, really means something to me, especially one that is signed and authenticated. Now, most of the time, I don't put much stock into COAs for books, except with a company like Dynamic Forces, because this is what they do. Dynamic Forces is one of the few COAs I trust in the industry other than my own, because I witness every single signature, especially when you got the matching number. Along with the matching number, you're good to go. Dinosaurs versus Mars bots. This is 1975. This is 1997. Now, I gotta tell you guys, don't let the title fool you. This is probably one of the best written stories out of the last 10 years of comic books. You can find the creator, Gary Hodge, on YouTube or on Instagram, and he has his own little shop set up where you can buy these books. He self-publishes them. They are massive books, lots of pages, great story, very, very long. Of course, starts in 1975, jumps to 1997. I can't wait for the next one. I will definitely pick it up when it comes out. Like I said, one of the best written stories of the last 10 years. Next up, Dead World, issue number 1. Yes, Comic Vantage has always been a huge, huge, huge indie fan. But I like to show this book with this one. Both of these books right here mean so much to me. I love the Transformers. It's one of the greatest comic books and toy lines ever, I think. Dead World is one of the greatest written zombie stories ever. Now here is the dichotomy of Lewis. I remember being a kid at a comic book store called The Collector's Web in Reading, Pennsylvania, and I'm sitting on the floor, like kneeling down, and I have a copy of each one of these books in my hands. And I only have so much money as a kid, and I'm debating which one to buy. And that's why both these books mean so, so much to me. Next up, Darker Image, issue number 1. First appearance of the Max, kind of, because we know he's also in... oh, now I'm drawing a blank for that other book. Anyway, we got Blood Wolf, and... You know, I don't know why this book here... I don't know. I've owned this book since the 90s, and I love it to death. I absolutely love it to death. I can't tell you why. Whenever I see a copy, I have to buy it. Although lately it has been kind of exploding because of Max here. And this is the newsstand variant of this book. I own a variation of every single one of these. I have the regular direct edition with each of the cards in the back. I have the newsstand, I have the gold, I have the platinum. I love it. I can't pass it up. Now, I told myself I wouldn't get on my soapbox about this, but you know what? I'm going to, because this is one thing I like to do. I like educating people. Now, I mentioned the whole newsstand edition of this, and people really, really kind of freak out with newsstand editions. So now let me explain a few things. This is the newsstand of Transformers. This is the direct edition of Transformers. In theory, neither of these books should have a value over the other. They are completely equal. I think the whole newsstand thing that's going on right now, like, oh my God, I have a newsstand cover. I really think it's a cash grab for a lot of sellers out there, and they're really propagating some false information. First up, neither of these books is worth more than the other, and I'll tell you why. I mean, well, in theory, I'm sure you're like, oh, newsstands worth... No, okay. In theory, neither of these should be worth more than the other because they have equal distribution. Back in the 80s and 90s, newsstand variants were just as prevalent as direct editions. During the 80s and 90s, I really didn't go to a comic book store a lot of times to buy my books. I went to 7-Eleven or the grocery store, and that's where you found the newsstand variants. So they have equal distribution. Now, the reason everybody is freaking out about newsstand editions is because of Image Comics. 90% of the time, that doesn't mean anything unless you come to Image. Now, during the 90s when Image was coming out, a lot of places like 7-Eleven had never heard of Image Comics. They didn't want to take a chance, so they didn't buy their book to put out to sell. So less than 10% of the Image Comics that are floating from the early 90s are newsstand variants. That's why they're worth more. But when you come into the 80s and books like Marvel and DC, equal distribution, no difference in price. There you go. I said it. But like I said, everybody's like, oh, newsstand. And now sellers are like, hey, I'm going to jack this one up. It's a newsstand too. Don't let it fool you. All right. Oh, Marvel Comics presents Weapon X, issue number 84. Barry Windsor Smith again. This guy, he drew the epitome of Wolverine to me. And this book is so beautiful. I love this cover. The artwork is called Agony of the Claws. And it is a wraparound. So you can see the front and the back. Absolutely beautiful. Great story behind this cover is one year I'm floating around at San Diego Comic-Con, And Glenn Danzig is a huge comic book fan. He had his own comic book company. He still does. You know, he created all kinds of crazy comic books. And he sells original artwork a lot of times at San Diego Comic-Con. He'll have a booth set up. And he had this cover hanging on the wall. And, oh, I couldn't believe it. And, you know, I'm a kid at the time. I was probably, I don't know, 20 something, early 20s. No way in hell I have enough money to buy this thing. But I asked him if there was any way I can see it. Now he knows I'm not going to buy it. But there's no one else at the booth, so he's not helping anybody. So he's like, sure. He was kind enough to bring this beautiful piece of artwork down from the wall and let me hold it in my hand. And just for giggles, I was like, you know what, just for laughs, how much is this thing? And he said $20,000. Worth every penny, I am sure, because by the end of the convention, it was gone. Somebody bought it. All right. Woohoo! Uncanny X-Men, issue number 314, Early Frost. Absolutely love this story. And from the moment I read it back in the 90s, absolutely loved it. But I didn't know the full story behind it. So I met Scott Lobdell, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago here at the Amazing Con in Las Vegas. And I got him to sign a copy of this. And he likes telling stories too. So this is the story he told me. He's like, do you have any idea, the story behind this book? And I'm like, no, what's up? He's like, well, at the time, I took over writing X-Men. And he's like, and I wanted to do something completely different with Iceman. And I wanted to expand on him. And I approached Marvel and I said, hey, can I change him and do some of this crazy stuff with him? And Marvel flat out told him no. And the reason that was because they had a new toy line coming out, and they felt that if he had changed the character, it would confuse people who were buying the toy line. So he created this story where Emma Frost woke up from her coma after the whole attack on the Hellions, took over Iceman's body, and started using his powers in ways he never thought possible. This was the first time we ever caught a glimpse of Iceman becoming an Omega level mutant. And then later on, she actually teaches him how to use some of these abilities. This is such an amazing story. Speaking of amazing stories, all new X-Men issue number 40. This right here has a few of the pages, which is some of the most beautifully written stories I've ever had the pleasure of reading in comic books. Oh, we're getting close to the end here. But, look at that. Love and Rockets, issue number 1. This is a first print. Now, Love and Rockets is a trendsetter. I mean, I don't want to use that term lightly, but it really is. It's not a joke. This book started it all for a lot of companies out there to take chances on some underground and more adult comics. Without a book like Love and Rockets, I don't think the Vertigo line on DC would have ever happened. It's just an amazing, amazing piece of comic book history right here. Oh, speaking of adult comics, Faust, issue number 1. If I'm not mistaken, Faust is coming back either as an animated series or a live action series. Ultra violent, ultra sexual. I think if this book had a rating, it would probably be X. But it has beautiful artwork and an absolutely amazing storyline. Venomverse, issue number 1, the variant edition. Now, this book is in my collection because this was a gift from my kid. She actually came home one day and she happened to wander by a comic book store with her boyfriend and went inside and just bought this for me, just on a whim. And I absolutely love it, and it has a lot of meaning, and it's gorgeous. Oh, here's a book I've recently put into my collection. I've been trying to hunt it down for a very long time at a decent price. This is Zen, the Intergalactic Ninja, issue number 1. A lot of people look at this book and they're like, what the hell? But really, during the late 80s and 90s, Zen was really taking off. It had a new series that came out from Archie Comics, has its own NES video game, had a toy line. So Zen was actually, pretty popular back then. I know Steve Stern and Dan Cote are starting to do some more stories with it, so I'm really, really excited to see if he starts taking off again. Now, by the time I got down on this list, I only had 2 spots left, but I had 3 books, and I didn't know, where to give what. So I am just going to give props to all 3 for the last 2 spots. So that means this is a top 51 of my collection. So here we have G.I. Joe issue number 1, Voltron issue number 1, Thundercats issue number 1. All of these also meant a great deal to me back in the 80s as far as cartoons and toys went. I love them to death. I still do. So they get our number 50 spot, even though they are not bottom of the list by any means at all. All right, guys, that's it. That is my top 50. That's like a half an hour of your life you will never get back. But I'm hoping you watched the whole thing, and I'm hoping I enjoyed you and you liked my stories. And maybe learned a few things here and there, some books to pick up. Like always, guys, to my current subscribers, love you to death. You guys are amazing. If you're not subscribed, hit the little CV and hit the little like button over here and the little bell up there. It doesn't cost you anything. Just do it. Just do it. That helps me out. And also, leave some comments down below, whether you like it, dislike it, don't like the book, love the books, hate the books, whatever. Yeah, that's it, guys. And like always, thank you for watching, and take it easy.